The blue pellets rattled in the small paper cup as my mother held them out to me, her smile as sweet as antifreeze. At 14, I'd learned to recognize the warning signs, the sing-song voice, the theatrical gestures, the way her eyes went flat when she said the word vitamins. "Take your vitamins or no denier," she sang, shaking the cup like a maraca. The pellets made a sound like tiny bones. I stared at them, my stomach already cramping from yesterday's dose. They were the same industrial blue as always, the size of rice grains, with a chemical smell that cut through even the lavender perfume my mother doused herself in. "I took them this morning," I lied, though we both knew the routine. Once in the morning, once at night. Special vitamins, she called them. For my weak constitution, for my pale complexion, for whatever imaginary ailment justified another day of poisoning. "Now, Daphne," her voice dropped its musical quality, "do we need to have Daddy explain the importance of nutrition again?" I took the cup. 3 years. That's how long I'd been taking these vitamins. It started when I was 11, right after my grandmother died and left me her entire estate in trust. Funny how my health suddenly became a concern the moment I became worth $2 million. Money I couldn't touch until 18, unless I died first. The pellets felt heavier than they should as I tipped them into my mouth. I'd gotten good at tucking them into my cheek, pretending to swallow. But tonight, Mom watched extra carefully, even checking under my tongue afterward. "Good girl," she cooed, patting my cheek. "Now, dinner will be ready in 20 minutes. I'm making your favorite, spaghetti." My favorite was actually lasagna, but I learned not to correct her. Contradicting Mother's version of reality only led to increased doses. I waited until I heard her heels clicking down the hallway before I ran to my bathroom and forced myself to throw up. It didn't get all the poison out. I learned that the hard way. But it helped. The blue residue in the toilet was evidence I quickly flushed away. Then I went to my closet, moved aside the loose floorboard, and pulled out my diary. March 15th, 7:43 p.m. 2 blue pellets again. Threw up most of them. The burning in my stomach is getting worse. Nosebleed for 10 minutes after school. Sarah asked if I was okay. I told her it was allergies. I'd been documenting everything for 2.5 years, ever since I'd found one of the pellets that had rolled under my dresser and decided to investigate. The public library had computers where I could research without my parents tracking my searches. What I found made my blood run cold. The skull and crossbones on the box my mother kept hidden in the garage. The warnings about internal bleeding. The symptoms that matched mine perfectly: nausea, nosebleeds, fatigue, the metallic taste that never left my mouth. Rat poison. They were feeding me actual rat poison, measured out in small enough doses to kill me slowly, making it look like a wasting disease. March 15th continued. Found the box again today when they were at work. Took pictures. Brand name: RVDEX Extreme. Active ingredient: Brodifacoum 0.005%. Skull symbol clearly visible. Box is almost empty. Must be the 3rd or 4th one based on my calculations. I'd hidden everything. Photos printed at school. Research about poisoning symptoms. A timeline of my declining health that corresponded exactly with the vitamin regimen. But the diary was my most complete record. 3 years of evidence, written in my increasingly shaky handwriting as the poison accumulated in my system. Some entries were just symptoms. October 2nd, blood in urine again. Very tired, fell asleep in math class. Others documented their excuses. December 18th, Dad said I inherited Grandma's weak blood. Mom agreed, said that's why I need the special vitamins. I asked to see a doctor. They said doctors would just prescribe the same vitamins but charge thousands of dollars. The worst entries were when I figured out why. January 5th. Overheard Mom on phone with insurance company. If I die before 18, everything goes to them as my guardians. If I make it to 18, they get nothing. I have 3 years, 4 months, and 11 days left. But I wouldn't make it 3 more years at this rate. The doses were increasing. The symptoms were worsening. And today, I'd made a decision. March 15th final entry. Tomorrow I'm going to tell Mr. Patterson. I'll bring the diary to school. I'll show him everything. Either he helps me or I die. There's no third option anymore. Mr. Patterson was my English teacher, the only adult who'd ever questioned my declining health with genuine concern rather than casual dismissal. He pulled me aside last week after I'd bled through a tissue during his class, asking if everything was okay at home. I'd almost told him then. The next morning, I could barely get out of bed. The room spun, my limbs felt like lead, and when I coughed, the tissue came away spotted with red. But I forced myself up, tucked my diary into my backpack, and stumbled downstairs. "Morning, sweetness," Mom chirped, already holding out the morning dose. "You look pale. Good thing we have your vitamins." I took them, gave them down with orange juice that tasted like copper, and grabbed a piece of toast I knew I wouldn't keep down. "Actually," Dad said, checking his watch, "I think she needs a double dose today. She's looking particularly weak." My heart stopped. A double dose? I was barely surviving the regular amount. "What a good idea," Mom agreed, already shaking out 2 more pellets. "Open up, Daphne." I had no choice. 4 pellets instead of 2. I felt them dissolving in my stomach like tiny bombs. School was 3 blocks away, but it felt like 3 miles. Each step was agony, my vision blurring at the edges. I just had to make it to first period. Just had to get to Mr. Patterson's class. I collapsed in the hallway outside his door. The rest came in fragments, Mr. Patterson's voice calling for help. The taste of blood filling my mouth. The school nurse's frantic hands checking my pulse. And through it all, my backpack clutched against my chest, the diary inside my last hope. "Daphne, what happened?" Mr. Patterson's face swam into focus as paramedics arrived. "Backpack," I managed to whisper. "Diary. Evidence. They're poisoning me." I saw his eyes widen as he unzipped my bag, saw him flip through pages of symptoms and secrets. The paramedics were inserting IVs, checking vitals, preparing to transport me. But Mr. Patterson was reading 3 years of attempted murder documented in purple ink. "Dear God," he breathed, then louder, to the paramedics. "Test her for rat poison. Rotifacum specifically, and call the police." At the hospital, as doctors pumped vitamin K into my veins to counteract the anticoagulant effects of the poison, Detective Sarah Mills sat beside my bed with my diary, reading each entry with growing horror. 3 years, she said quietly. "You documented 3 years of systematic poisoning. Daphne, this is one of the most complete records of attempted murder I've ever seen." "I knew no one would believe me without proof," I whispered. "A kid saying their parents are poisoning them? Who believed that?" "Your diary makes it impossible not to believe," she said. "The dates, the symptoms, the photos you mentioned. Where are those?" "Hidden at school. In my locker, behind the math textbooks." They found everything. The printed photos of the poison boxes. The research about inheritance law. The timeline showing how my health declined in perfect correlation with the vitamin regimen. But it was the diary that sealed the case, page after page of a young girl documenting her own slow murder. The arrest happened while I was still in the ICU. My parents had the audacity to show up at the hospital, playing the concerned guardians. They walked right into Detective Mills' waiting arms. "Where's our daughter?" Mom demanded. "We were so worried when the school called." "She's being treated for severe rat poison toxicity," Detective Mills replied. "Funny thing, she's been documenting the poisoning in a diary, 3 years worth of entries, very detailed." Dad's face went white. "That's ridiculous. We gave her vitamins, not blue pellets, twice daily. From a box with a skull and crossbones hidden in your garage?" The detective held up an evidence bag with the RODEX Extreme box. "We found quite a stash. Enough to kill several people if administered all at once, or one person if spread out over several years." The trial was a sensation. The prosecutor read entries from my diary, each one a nail in my parents' coffin. The jury saw the photos, the medical records showing my declining health, the trust fund documents that provided 2 million reasons for murder. The defendant didn't just poison their daughter, the prosecutor stated. They gaslit her, isolated her, made her question her own body's distress signals. And all the while, this brave young woman documented everything. She built her own case, knowing that someday she'd need proof that the people who were supposed to love her most were killing her. They were both sentenced to life in prison. The judge called it one of the most calculated, cold-blooded attempted murders he'd ever seen. The diary, he said, showed not just the crime, but the psychological torture of a child forced to participate in her own execution. I'm 18 now, living with a foster family who actually cares if I'm healthy. The trust fund that nearly cost my life now pays for my college and therapy. I still have health issues. 3 years of rat poison leaves lasting damage. But I'm alive. I keep the diary in a safety deposit box now. Sometimes I read it, marveling at the girl who had the presence of mind to document her own attempted murder. Every entry is evidence that I survived, that I fought back with the only weapon I had, the truth, written one page at a time. The last entry, written from my hospital bed, simply says, March 16th. I lived. They're arrested. The vitamins were poison, just like I knew. 3 years of evidence believed at last. I lived, I lived, I lived. And I did. One diary entry at a time, I saved my own life.